Yes, I hope.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. So, so instead of being on your phones texting, now you're going to be using your phones to actually be active within the session. So if you can scan the QR code with your phone, or you can also go to menti.com and then enter this code so that you're part of the session. So let us know if you have any problems connecting in the chat, and then maybe we'll wait a couple of minutes so that people are connected.
Excuse me, do you hear me?
Yes.
This is George Carariga speaking.
Uh-huh.
You said that we can, if there are any problems, we can let you know via the chat. The chat is currently disabled, first
Okay.
point. And second point, why can't we see the other participants? We can only see the four of you.
Yeah, I think it's because maybe the version of Zoom that we're doing is a webinar at the moment. So maybe that's probably why it's not a normal meeting or Zoom meeting. But thanks for letting us know. I didn't know that was how you were viewing the people, or how you're viewing the Zoom. So is the chat okay at the moment? Can someone?
It still shows disabled on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, let us look at it, because of course for us panelists everything is working just fine.
Yeah,
But good.
exactly.
Thanks for reporting that.
I think
Maybe
you will be the only four of you that have access, because everything else has been completely disabled. There's no possibility to view other participants, to communicate with other participants, or with you either. So
All right, that's not very good.
yeah, I
guess.
cannot see it from my end, Mel.
definitely will not help any interaction and any discussion.
So you cannot really send messages in the chat. Is that it?
Yes, that's correct. Chat is disabled.
Well, but you know, when if we manage to use Mentimeter and we have like the raise hand function, that I hope that is looking okay on your end,
Yeah.
George.
Maybe you can
Well, the thing is that
chat,
even
or
even the nature of today's meeting, I mean, it helps to create the community feeling, even if it's online, without seeing who you're participating with.
Okay, I think it should be fine
It's
now.
a little bit challenging, at least for me, personally speaking. So
Can
I don't know
you
about the rest of you.
try? Can you try now?
It works now. We are
Yes,
receiving
it works
in the
now.
chat.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fantastic.
fine. Yeah, I think everyone's typing in. Great. All right, so I think, did you all manage to maybe join the Menti session? I guess we have a chat here. Perfect, yes. But you also feel free to also unmute yourself and ask and let us know. So you don't always have to use the chats, but you can if you want to, now that it's enabled. This is really good. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, so I guess we can start. So like I've mentioned, so today's informal general club chats are going to talk about expectations from PhD supervision, and we're hoping that it's going to be interactive. So please participate as much as you can. So the outline, sorry. So the outline of the presentation or of this session would be to maybe go first through the PhD and the motivations. What did motivate you really to start a PhD? And then second, we can go over the expectations from both you as a PhD student and then maybe supervisors, if some of you are currently supervising students and so on, and you're more in a senior role. What do you expect from PhD students? And then just to finally go over some tips for a better maybe PhD supervision relationship. And like I mentioned before, so the format is supposed to be interactive. You can raise your hand through Zoom or write in the chat that is now working if you have any questions. And then we're also really excited to hear your thoughts and experience. So just let us know. So to begin with, maybe on your phones, you can try to tell us where you're joining us from. So you can maybe put a pin and then we can try to see this live here. It's a little bit sometimes hard to put a pin in Europe, but if you want, you can also write in the chat where you're joining us from. Armenia, okay, that's exciting. Turkey, Portugal,
Germany.
Germany.
Very specific. Thanks for being here.
Oh, that's nice. Spain. I can see some little dots appearing. I tried to put dots also myself around Sweden, but it was quite difficult and it ended up being in Finland. So this is maybe not a good map. It needs to be a bit bigger. But this is great. So we have people from all over joining us. Really, really nice. Okay, then we can maybe go through. So to start off, I was reading a little bit about what is a PhD in general and what is the structure of a PhD. And the structure of a PhD has been quite stagnant over many, many years. So of course, usually it's like 3 to 4 years. We have one main supervisor, and then at the end, we're supposed to produce this book that is assessed in an oral examination. So it's always been really the same format, so nothing much has changed. But of course, there are some things that changed, maybe when it comes to academic and industry supervisors. So now I think pharma industries and academia are working closely together. Some projects are even fully funded by industry, which was the case, for example, in my previous postdoc. Where there's more interaction between academia and industry, especially when it comes to accelerating translation. At the moment, of course, you might have one supervisor, but you also might have some other collaborators or co-supervisors that are from different universities to maybe enhance a little bit the collaboration. And then also some universities have now changed the format of the book or the thesis that should be assessed, where the PhD can be assessed by the number of publications that you're producing, which then you will discuss during your thesis defense. So there is a little bit of change, but overall, mainly the structure has remained a little bit the same. Some other novelties when it comes to the PhD structure could be how you're trained as a PhD student when you're doing courses. So now it used to be like a one-on-one training where you get most of the training from your mentor or your supervisor, whereas now I think some universities are encouraging you to train together with other PhD students, where you have joint courses, where you're interacting with maybe students that are not from the same department. So it's becoming a little bit more interactive. And also they're teaching a lot of the PhD students at the moment some transferable skills. So these are skills that might be applicable in your area of expertise, but also skills that you can also transfer to other areas if you end up not staying in academia, for example. And these are skills such as data analytics, which can be really applied anywhere, public engagements and project management and so on. So these are really good and useful skills that are not only for people working in academia. But we are interested to know also what was your motivation to start a PhD. So there'll be a question about that in a little bit. But I just wanted to maybe highlight here this roadmap of the PhD, where we all start with a research question, and then we're supposed to do a lot of lit review, and then we then start with the studies that we're supposed to do. Some of the studies go well, some don't go so well, and then we end up producing this the thesis book that we defend. But of course, what goes on underneath is much more difficult and complicated. We all struggle. We all fail. We all do a lot of sacrifices. We get disappointed. We want to give up. But then that's not really what people see. People see a little bit the tip of the tip of the iceberg, that we are very successful, we're publishing and so on, but people might not know how difficult it is actually to do a PhD. I thought this PhD comic was quite fun, that you start off by always being so excited that you really like research, that academia is really the place for you, and then the further you go, then it feels a little bit more demotivating, that you're like, do I really want to do this? And then some of the alternative plans might be, the secret plans might be that, I might, when I finish my PhD, I might just go and open a bakery and so on. So that's something that I think all of us have thought about. But maybe if you can reply to this question using your phone. So what is your motivation for doing a PhD? And then if the motivation is not really one of these suggestions, then also feel free to write in the chat.
Or perhaps what your motivation was for those that are a bit more senior in the crowd.
Yeah. I think we have 5 replies so far to this question. Interesting. Fernando, do you want to maybe comment?
Sure. Let me have a look at this. Yeah, so I mean, of course, there are many reasons why after our masters or degrees, we decide to go into a PhD program. None of them is wrong, of course, because there is never a wrong reason to engage into a PhD program. However, highly paid job in industry. When I want to hear about that comment, I definitely want to hear about the one and discuss that one. So I would say if you are driven by curiosity or think you would like to remain in academia, of course, for some career path, it is like a requirement for you to have a PhD degree. So in that case, of course, you not only are driven by passion, but that you're gonna need that to become professor or something like that. I would say that whichever your motivation is, and this is where our conversation is going probably in the next few slides, is very important to keep on assessing and reassessing those motivations throughout the PhD, because I found that super helpful during my PhD, and those moments of down, because science can be great, but of course it's not all things do not always work experimentally wise specifically. So having a clear idea of where you're going, which were your motivations, which are your current motivations, is always something useful to keep you focused and engage into the path that you are going through. I would say that's my comment, but if anyone else wants to comment on this, I think we might want to hear already from the people in the audience, right?
Yeah, we have an interesting comment also in the chat. So I think, so we have a Sohrabi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but they're saying that to do research on vaccine development, however, I became a group leader in the field of inflammation and cardiometabolic diseases. So maybe you start somewhere, but then you end up in a different field, which is also
definitely. But again, if anyone wants to just pick up a bit and let us know a bit more, otherwise we can do that slowly as we move to the next slides.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to see how people are, it will be really nice to see what are the motivations during the PhD, because these things are changing while you progress, because sometimes we engage in things being too optimistic and maybe too naive and too, idealistically. And then in the process, we need to change the focus of our motivation in order to keep up and really mature through this process. And this is what was mentioned in the comment, where there is a change of complete focus from one type of research to another. This is something that sometimes it's necessary, but it's not really easy to do, because you have one type of skills and you are focused on one type of research, and then you need to change everything, and then and then start working on something else. And I think that after a PhD and engaging in early postdoc, this is maybe the best time to really reevaluate yourself and your interest in research, and say, okay, maybe this what I was doing until this point was not so satisfying as I thought it might be, but maybe I can now go to cancer, or from cancer to, I don't know, bacteriology, whatever it drives you. But I think it's really important to always find focus, even on a daily basis, because as you said, Fernando, sometimes things are going really backwards. and one thing that I think that really is most important part of every PhD trajectory is consistency. Really trying to do things with consistency, every day progress, no matter how small this progress is. After 2 years, when you pile it up, it's going to give you a huge, the difference between where you were 2 years ago or 3 years ago and where you were then. So
we also
Yeah,
have a
that's true.
comment from
Yeah, I was ready to
It's
read.
beautiful.
Yeah, like, of course,
Gives you hope of it.
if Luis wants to jump in, that would be great. But I think that the final sentence in his comment is
Yeah.
probably, for most of us, that applies. After, in the end of the day, the reason why we're here is because we cannot see ourselves doing anything else, or like it's unlikely for us to be doing something else than research, because that's what we love, right? So that's true.
It's also the flexibility of being able to, plan your own experiments, be independent, but also have the flexibility to work from home if you need to do this. But of course, I mean, we also have to acknowledge that we always end up working more than when we should. I mean, at least it's the case of everyone I know, that although we do like this freedom, that we have this flexibility, but maybe this reward that we're getting because of having this flexibility makes us want to give more, and then we end up, of course, doing it all the time, checking the emails all the time over weekend and so on, because we're really motivated and passionate about it. So yeah. So I can maybe move a little bit further to start talking a bit about the expectations from a PhD. So this was a survey that was done, and it was now it's published in Higher Education Research and Development Journal, where different PhD students and supervisors were questioned. And then while 114 PhD students thought that what is expected of a PhD student is to publish at least 4 papers, is what is important. Winning grants is important, awards, and this is the most important outcome of their PhD. Whereas the supervisors were more focused on the skills that the PhD students were gaining, such as critical thinking, written communication, the discipline, knowledge, and so on. So these were the greatest indicators of a student's success. Now, I think these two expectations can be merged a little bit, because I think as the student maybe progresses through the PhD, they will gain all of these skills, but this is also maybe viewed in how they are publishing, or if the quality of the work is okay, and so on. So it's like the PhD students and supervisor have different expectations to begin with, from what they think is actually the journey that you have to maybe go through, at least according to this survey. So it's important to know from the beginning that maybe, what I think is a good PhD might not be what someone else might think is a good PhD, and then maybe my supervisor also wants me to have or acquire different skills, or to be successful, then maybe they think that these are certain requirements. So just to be aware that people can have really different expectations when it comes to what is a good PhD. So this is the next question. What were your expectations when you started your PhD? These are some suggestions, of course, but if you feel like this doesn't really meet what you think, then you can also write in the chat. So this was, of course, maybe for some people a little bit further back, but you can also say, let us know what were your expectations when you started your PhD. What were you expecting from the university, from the supervisors? What was important for you?
Yeah, Mel, I think this is really great question, because and all the answers are really, for me, really interesting. I just add my answer to it, and I think that the first thing, and now I can see that it is gaining more and more points, clearly plan structured PhD. This is something that is very often, unfortunately, missing from the supervisor side. Sometimes it is expected from the PhD student to really, establish its own PhD subject of research, which maybe, I don't know when this was something that was feasible, but now I don't think really that. I think that one of the most important parts of the supervision is for the supervisor to have a clear idea what this PhD is all about. Not necessarily or the means how to execute everything, but at least a relatively straightforward line from A to B to C to D. Because
students really look for that. We've had recently some PhD interviews where we got this question a lot from the PhD students that what am I going to be doing? What are the projects? And even though for a supervisor or for a co-supervisor, when you're designing a research project, you really have an idea, but it really depends on the results. It really depends on the funding and so on. So for us, it's not. We don't think of it as a really critical step, but this could be a limitation for some students when they feel like when we say, oh, the project can evolve in many different ways, you can take it wherever you want, all of these things that we think maybe the students really want to hear, that they have some that it's a little bit unsure, or they have like so much freedom, but actually it's really better to be focused and then have maybe preliminary data that supports all of these questions.
That helps. Yeah, because as Miron was saying, it's not like you need to prove and show me where the paper is going to end up being published.
No.
But I think the students do need, the certainty in a way that, the idea is good, meaning that some pilot data was produced and is, of course, all to be defined, is all to be discovered, but the initial idea, the hypothesis is there. So it makes it exciting for them, but also, in a way feasible. Again, just some pilot data doesn't mean it's going to be, it doesn't mean that you have the certainty of where the project is going, but at least that you can start working on something that is solid and robust enough for you, like to try and crack it during a PhD program. So yeah, probably that's that kind of certainty that people looks after when they start a program like this.
Yeah, this clearly planned structured PhD shouldn't be confused with, like, how to say, like, exact roadmap from A to B to C to D, because in research, I mean, the term research includes search and then which means that we search and search in circles, right? So basically it has the repetitive nature in itself. So which means that we need to go and go and go, but it needs to have at least some checkpoints, I think. And also, if student comes to us, so what your research is going to be about? Well, I mean, we are exploring atherosclerosis. I mean, this is quite vast thing. I think it should be more specific. But as Mel pointed out, sometimes you go this way, but the data is driving you that way. So that's also something that needs to be understood by a student when he or she is entering the PhD program. Another interesting answer here was senior researcher who helped me with the experiments, 3 out of, again, 3 and 3.6 and
Oh,
2.8.
that's
So
eight,
basically,
yeah, so.
basically 1/3 of the people are expecting to have senior researcher who helps with the experiments. But this is something I'm a little bit conflicted about this, because during your PhD, you need to acquire your, as Mel previously mentioned, your transferable skills, but also hard research skills, something that is very, very into the process, very linked to the process. For example, if you are going to do your qPCRs, if you have a senior researcher who can help you, this doesn't mean that you will say, okay, I need to make primers for these 5 genes. Can you make me primers for these five genes? It means that, what I mean, the guidance is not somebody who will work and doing everything and then give you numbers, and then you will sit in the computer and in R use these as numbers. You really need to understand the basic methodology behind the entire process. It doesn't mean that person A, who is senior, will help you do all the things, because it is not the same. From my perspective as a teacher, being teacher for so many years, I can see that if you explain everything to students, okay, they will perform better that particular task, but do they really understand the entire methodology? And if anything deviates left to right from this path that you gave them, from the protocol that you establish yourself, then they will not be able to manage. So in order to gain a little bit of independence, you really, it shouldn't be like I give you all the protocols and then you just apply them. You by yourself as a PhD student, you need to go above that, beyond that, and really make it you use it in a way that works for you, and understand everything behind this methodology. Either it's, I don't know, cell line treatment or qPCR or sequencing, whatever it is. You really need to, by the end of your PhD, understand this methodology in a way that in 1 year after your PhD, you will be the senior scientist who needs to help others.
It usually shows, I guess, when you're just doing something without understanding the methodology or the principle of a certain experiment. It usually shows at some point, whether you're presenting at a conference or at a lab meeting, or whether it's at your dissertation. So it always comes back to you. So I guess even if you ask for help sometimes, just try to make sure that you know why this is the answer, or why this is the way we do it, and what, I mean, I also think that all of the researchers are curious anyway, so they will ask questions and questions and questions. But if you just get the answer and then without really thinking of why, then it always comes back to you somehow that you don't know.
Yeah, but no, in a way, I think, this is still like a journey. So this question will be like, what do you expect at the beginning? But then hopefully thanks to their supervisors, all the PhD students start maturing these kind of thoughts that we were just sharing, as you keep on being progressing in your PhD, you realize that getting the answer from the postdoc is not the way to go, because the moment the experimental setup changes, you'll need to be able to think and, and implement experiments to make it work.
Exactly. So the next question is about scale these statements about PhD students. So whether you are currently a PhD student or an early career researcher, what do you think the role of a PhD student is? So you can scale how important each of these statements are. I think we have four people who answered so far. I think the top hit, the statement that got the most points so far, is people think, at least, that PhD students should be able to work independently. And I think this goes a little bit with what we've discussed before, that you need to be independent somehow. But I think in my experience, at least, this independency is something that PhD students gain over time. So it's not that PhD student who started their PhD year, or like, let's say month 3, or even month 6, or even year 1 should be expected to just do everything on their own. So the way at least we do it in our university is that independency is something that you gain over time, and then the more you show that you are able to be independent, the more the supervisor will give you this this independency. So it's something that is always evaluated, at least, because sometimes you really cannot work independently, and you really need input. You're stuck somewhere, and then you can't really figure it out. So I don't know what you all think.
I think also, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have problems with my microphone. I think this goes hand in hand also with the previous statement about senior researcher helping with experiments. Depends also on what you consider to be help, because of course, like Melody said, the first few months, even the first year, this help is not at the technical level only, but helping to form ideas in your head, learn to reason and to think logically, or to read a paper and understand what to take from it. And this also goes hand in hand with gaining that kind of independence, of course, because it's all part of the complete learning process, let's say. Without these few initial steps, or maybe a more close supervision at the beginning to get someone on the straight track, and then the independence comes, let's say, more naturally.
And I totally agree with that, Chris. I think that both the supervisor and the mentee should work together, towards what you just described, helping the PhD student to form their hypotheses, to have the knowledge to design experiments to test those hypotheses. And only when both parties feel like the PhD student is able to take those responsibilities, I think it should feel just natural to leave the PhD student to go and do the work independently. But of course, you need to reach the stage, first of all, and second of all, problems are always there behind the corner. So it's important that the supervisor is available to help understanding why on earth the cloning is not working. Like sometimes might be trivial, but some others, a lot of work needs to be done before you find a solution, and a PhD student alone maybe will not be able to do that. So yeah, I think there is a big chapter in the discussion of PhD supervision, isn't it?
I'm wondering what you think about the second statement. Should be the one to approach supervisor with an issue. Feel free to unmute yourself also if you have
it would be nice to hear from others,
because I think people just answered 3. So it's like it's not always for the student to do it, and then sometimes maybe the supervisor always expects the students to approach them with an issue. So
Personally,
I think both, actually,
can you hear me?
Not only the yeah,
Yep.
yeah, me too.
Yes, please.
Can I also talk?
Yes, of course you can talk. Everyone can talk.
So when I answered to the second subject, I answered in correlation with being able to work independently. So if you are independent, you don't need to approach your supervisor that often, because you can more or less solve the problem yourself. Although obviously, as said before, you always will reach something that is completely out of your depth currently, and you will need someone with a lot more experience than you. But when I answered, I didn't want to make it a 5.
Yeah.
While I do agree that most of the times it should be you reaching out for a supervisor and exposing your doubts, I think it shouldn't be that often, especially after year 1. You shouldn't be that dependent on the supervisor's opinion and feedback.
But what if sometimes it's difficult to approach the supervisor? What if the student feels like they will be taken in a wrong way, as if they're not able to solve the issues of, what if there's this like awkwardness about approaching, about even raising the
I'll
fact that there's an issue,
add you.
I think the supervisor maybe also needs to have a
Yeah, but I'll raise you one
ask.
more after that, which is, what if the supervisor doesn't even have the time or doesn't make the time for you, right? So that forces you to be independent and to solve your issues as well as you can, right?
We have, I think, two people who,
Yes.
yeah.
So Mario, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mario here. I'm a supervisor of 8 PhD students. I'm participating here so I can kind of get some of the feedback loop. Regarding this whole issue, I usually tell my students the following thing. So please start independently, find your way out. If you lose more than a day without knowing further, then we have a problem, and this is what we should discuss. So I think there should be a limit on, I mean, in the end, it's money, right? So being it taxpayers' money or some other sort of funding, if you spend a week or two on a single problem and don't move forward, there is an issue, and this issue needs to be discussed. So I always give a limitation on how long to work independently, or to give it a deadline for to stay at the same point. So I think this is very relevant for every supervisor and PhD issue, especially when one starts in the beginning. So you will need, for a problem, you will need a week. Later on, you might need a day. So things should be given deadlines.
Which is a really good tip, actually. Very,
Yeah,
very
it is.
nice.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for sharing. I think we also had another raised hand. Sohrabai, maybe?
Hi.
Hey.
This is Yahya, actually.
Oh,
Yahya
hey,
Sohrabi. Hi.
Sohrabi, hello.
Good. Thank you. Actually, hi, everyone. With my experience, actually being independent is really, really nice. Of course, but this is the process actually we should teach to students, so they can't be independent from the beginning, and then like they find themselves actually all alone and then desperately looking for something else, and then maybe they will just dismiss. This is, I think, the way actually we should show, as others said. In the first year, maybe a bit independency, but more actually dependency. But it will develop gradually. And then approaching to supervisor, I think actually this is like also to my experience, we should be open. So we should be open to student that, okay, they shouldn't actually approach for any single things, like a small problem, and they should try to like troubleshoot themselves. But in a way, also, in the end of the day, actually, they should feel that, yes, there is someone who can support them. And then if there is an issue, I think with my PhD student, I have four and three already graduated. So we are always actually kind of in a friendly environment. Usually senior people actually take care about junior people. And then if they are not able to find solution, of course, they are welcome actually to open the door and come and discuss, because this is, as another friend said, it's cost. More important is their time, of course, but money also is there. And if they like struggle 1 week and then spoil all the reagent, and their time is actually like kind of not refundable even. So it's I think it's two-way in a way. So we should be open to PhD student as well. Of course, they should feel also that they should be kind of independent.
It's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. So the next question is on the other side of the spectrum. So if you're a PhD student or supervisor, I think you can answer this statement also, and scale them according to what you agree and what you don't agree with about supervisors here.
I would like to add something on the last subject because no one spoke about it, about being present on site. It
Yeah.
really heavily depends on which type of lab work you have. For example, if you work with animals, mice, for example, you need to be there nearly every day to take care of them, feed them, watch their routines, etc. But there are other lab work that you can do in, I don't know, 2-3 days, and you can enjoy the rest of the week doing some remote work from home, and you don't need to be there. However, I also know that many supervisors, and this is particularly expressive in my country, where there is an idea that if you're not there, you're not actually working, right? So many people who do remote work or could do remote work, like writing a paper, reviewing something, whatever, data analysis, they have to go to the office anyway. Otherwise, the boss or the supervisor thinks you're actually not doing anything and you're just on the beach catching some sun, right? So that also depends. So being present depends, on my opinion, on the lab work that you actually have to do. If you're responsible enough to work by yourself and don't need someone watching over your shoulder, and if the supervisor or your boss is okay with it.
What do you think about the supervisor? Do you think it's important for the supervisor to be also present, maybe as often as the PhD student, or?
No, because probably the supervisor has a lot of meetings to attend, places to go, other types of responsibility that don't require them to be on site. I'd say that it's also important for them to be available. So if they are out, if they're only at the lab 2 times a month, that is not enough, you know. But they don't need to be there as often as the PhD students. I actually agree with I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, but the person that spoke previously. I agree that some of the, not the responsibilities, but some of the tasks can be left to the seniors PhDs to, you know, supervise the juniors with. So there's like a hierarchy, and you know, that way you also ease the burden of the supervisor with the smaller tasks, so they are not constantly bothered and can actually do, you know, the overall supervising and all the work that comes with
I think
that job. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, because I feel here we're really looking at maybe like 2 ends of the spectrum, so the PhD student and then the supervisor, the main supervisor, but then we sometimes forget the people that are in between that are also part of the team, where some of the responsibilities are shared, you know, whether it's senior PhD students, postdocs, but even lab techs and so on. So they all are also part of the team, and then the workload can also sometimes be shared across, so that maybe the responsibility is not only on the PhD student, or responsibility is not only on the supervisor, where they have to do everything. Sometimes we always forget that maybe, you know, there is a team going on. It's a team dynamic. So it's a really good thing that to think about that.
From my perspective, if I may jump in with this on-site, off-site presence and stuff like that. Me personally, being old school, I like to come to work. I'm much more productive, which doesn't mean that is the only right answer. I don't want to push that. It's just my personal thing. going through COVID and seeing things, you know, with working from home and stuff like that, I feel that if it all depends how the lab is structured. If there is a ambition or mission of the lab to become a team, and team, I always try to convince people that team is not just a bunch of people hanging around, but really having some more metaphysical chemistry between them. So if you want to build a team, I think that is really important to be on site, because personal connections that are built on everyday communications, even going for lunch breaks together and stuff like that, I think that really drives, you know, makes some connective tissue between people. Even if they have like 5 coffee breaks and stuff like that, they will chat about things that will make things much better on a much more personal level. And this will, I think, make team more cohesive. And the things, and people will get, at least it's my impression that people are much more easy or tend to be easy to communicate if you have like on, you know, meetings on every day. I mean, not formal meetings, but, you know, interactions with other people on everyday level, on everyday basis. On another side, if supervisor is not there for like, it's there like once a week, that can create a huge gap between PhD students and postdocs and a supervisor. At least I think that this is kind of my opinion, because sometimes, you know, in the when everything's runs well, it's going to be okay. But sometimes when PhD students, the things are just not working, and we are all human, we will start projecting our negativity toward other people, and then inevitably we will come to the conclusion, I have to be there every day, and this guy is never on work. You know what I mean? This can create this type of, I think,
Resentment.
yeah, resentment, exactly. So from my perspective, of course, if there are some things that can be done from work, and as Luis nicely put out, yeah, you can write papers, blah blah blah, all these things you can do from home, especially if you are in programming and doing bioinformatics. You can stay at home like 3 months in a row and then come and just report on things. But is it really something that builds a team? Where is the connectivity between people? Where is the interaction? You know, where is that feeling of security at job? But this is why I think it is important to be on site, not just for the sake of being there and just, you know, refreshing, you know, and playing Tetris all day long, but really to communicating with other people and connecting and creating something other than what is, you know, a job per se.
Yeah, I think we have someone in the chat that wants to comment. I just wanted to make a brief add-on to what Miron said. I think if we look at this from a team perspective, you know, we recently had a chat about team building and time management and, like, you know, how to manage a team. I think even when we decide to adopt a flexible hybrid, you know, scheme, I think what is important is to make sure that the team is all together on the same days, you know, like to give flexibility for people to work from home, but there needs to be a time in the week where all the team is there for the reasons that you describe. You need to that you know, that to build the network, you need to have the team thinking as a team, and that probably can only be truly achieved by having people together thinking, even just drinking a coffee together and discussing an experiment that is not working, and, you know, like crying about a Western blot that is not working all together over a coffee and trying to fix that.
Do Western blots ever work?
Oh yeah, let's close the topic. Yeah, I should have not even opened that box because it's so I think Mario was also willing
Yeah,
to comment on
Yeah,
this.
just to add on what you guys said, it's, you know, for those who want to become professors or by any other means successful in their careers, it's not you know, the code you did at home, it's the people you met, the friends you made in the end. This is what makes a professor, this is what makes a successful career. So, you know, being there at university, even no one is there from your team, and meeting other people and discussing with them is probably the most important thing you can have in your PhD.
Like, it's what you will remember from their PhD. It's these moments, really. I think also Yahya wanted to say something?
Yes,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make two topics actually just raise actually in a way, because being a mentor actually is important also to teach PhD students to use their time efficiently, because they can be in the lab actually 24 hours, but then at the end of the day, actually they cannot produce like equal to 2 hours or something like this. So I mean, like, hard working doesn't mean that actually they should work hard. So, and be in the lab like 24 hours, I don't know, 14 hours a day, and then just they should be able to plan their work efficiently, and then they should enjoy also their life. I totally agree with Miron about being present in the lab. For us, actually, we have to be in the lab because we should swap our card actually every day, and we have duties. We can be away as well, but for bench work, we should be in the lab in a way. One more important thing is also actually, like, I just wanted to say here, it is very much depends upon the culture from where PhD student is coming. Because we have actually this kind of not problem, but in a way we have to be able to help students to adapt actually to the system we have. Those people who are coming from, for example, East Country, I'm originally from East Countries, Middle East, so they usually don't come to supervisor and they try to solve problem, but they struggle. So that is a kind of problem actually we should somehow solve, and let them that actually they have to, if there is a problem, they have to approach. And also even actually like cultural problems sometimes. I have a PhD student from China, and then we were walking in the street, and then she was always going behind me, and then I was like feeling really, really uncomfortable actually why it is happening. In the beginning I said, oh, probably she is quite slow, then I should walk slower, and then I slowed down, and then she even actually went behind like 1 or 2 meters, and then at the end I asked why you are actually going behind me, and then she said, I cannot like go side by side you, because I'm kind of superior to her. And I said, no, there's no such a thing. So I mean, actually, there should be, in a way, we should be able to explain also this kind of barrier, that there is no such a things exist, and we are all team, and there should be kind of teamwork and team building. So I mean, the conditions we are having actually is more or less depends upon many factors, including culture as well.
Another factor, if I may, it's quick, so we can move on. Another factor that I think should be weighted is where each person, obviously according to the overall culture and the team synergy that is imposed or stimulated by the team, is to find where you're the most productive. For example, if your laboratory is huge and there is a lot of noise going around, it's probably difficult for you to focus and be productive, and maybe staying at home is nice. However, you will be truly lacking on the network possibilities and just, talking about everyday life, which always helps. We all know that isolation is bad. So I think that it's also important to not be one extreme or the other, but to manage yourself in a way that you always will have losses and gains. Everything you do, everything you choose to do, always has the upsides and the downsides. The question here is to find something for you that presents the most valuable gains, if I am able to express myself clearly.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, this is really, really great. And I think this is what we really wanted out of the session, to just have discussions really, and then have a place to start. So this is really insightful. Thank you so much. Maybe we can keep going for 5 more minutes, if that's okay. And then maybe we can stop after this question, I guess, and then maybe continue next time, because I think there was a lot to discuss. And of course, it's important to, I mean, it would be good to go through the presentation, but that's not really the point. I think the point is to share, to share experiences, to give advice, to give perspectives, and so on. And that's what we really want out of these JC chats. So I'm really happy that we're getting that, and I hope that it's also useful for everyone. So the next question was, how would you like to be viewed as a PhD student? What would be the main characteristic that you would be happy for people to recognize you with? So we have someone who said responsible. That's quite nice. Reliable.
I think while we wait to have a couple more inputs, I think what Mel was saying is indeed true. This is like our first chat session, and what we wanted really to achieve from today's session is like to start understanding how we can discuss a bit more the PhD journey with like both supervisors and PhD students, so that we can maybe tailor a bit more our next chats, and perhaps maybe decide to have another one before the end of the year, maybe December. We'll come back to you
Yeah.
when we can plan a bit more this. But yeah, I think it will be super useful to discuss not only papers, because of course we are happy to discuss science and techniques, but sometimes I feel like it's also good to give people the network and the platform to just discuss, let's take this as that kind of coffee break in the lab that we were mentioning earlier, to have the group of people to chat with about what is going on in your PhD.
Maybe it could also spark some conversations that maybe
Definitely.
people are scared to talk about. So that's I think that's what we're planning to do in our group, at least. We're planning on integrating the journal clubs and the journal club chats from Ateronet in our monthly journal clubs, so that of course we can talk about the research, which is what we usually do during the JCs, but also to talk about these other issues that sometimes are hidden and then maybe not so direct. So it could hopefully spark some conversations between the team, between the PhD students themselves, between postdocs, supervisors, and so on.
So one thing that I think that we would like to maybe emphasize for the next time, it's really the fact that there is a big generation gap between the people, and this generation gap is getting bigger and bigger with the new technology that is influencing the state of mind of current generations. For example, we chat privately about this, but when I was a PhD student, there was a 30-year gap between my mentor and me. And now there's maybe 10 years gap between me and my PhD students. But I feel that this gap is much bigger than between me and my mentor. And I think this is something like something very important to be aware of as a future supervisors and future mentors. We need to feed our own experience with what PhD students currently are thinking, what is their state of mind. And I think we should really try to engage as many as PhD students as we can from different cultures. As Yaya mentioned, I think that was an excellent point, really, because people from one country can be more open-minded about these things and feel less intimidated by hierarchy, even if there is no hierarchy. But on the other hand, people from other cultures where the structure of hierarchy was something that you were taught since you were born, then in your mind is really hard to escape this feeling. And you really have for me, it was kind of a huge leap to really start talking with seniors without putting titles in front of their names, things like that, dear professor, blah blah blah. And for a long time people were giving me like, there he looks, what is his problem? But for me, it was something that I use in everyday communication in Serbia. So this is something that really needs to be I mean, I'm just putting these things out there, but it's not only that. It's just there is a vast difference in how people what is the perception of current young generations that are taking PhD and us about research and all these cultural things in the lab that needs to be out there. We need to be able to discuss this openly and really have input from their side. And this is why I think we should, for our next journal club, really try to engage as many PhD students as we can and really give them a platform for them to speak freely about their feelings and to try to find the tools how to engage them properly.
I think, Luis, you wanted to say something? You raised your hand.
Yes. So this question is directed to PhD students. But I'm actually curious about the perspective of the supervisors. So we have a lot of supervisors here, and if you are, for example, to hire a postdoc, obviously you will look at the curriculum and you will try to assess their qualities, their skills. But if you had to choose among, these more soft skills, what would actually be something that you would catch your eye? So someone that is independent, what is like something that you actually value personally and would make a strong case for you to get in your team?
Yeah, that's a good question to keep for next time. I think to hear the other perspective. But I think, if you're recruiting a PhD student or a postdoc or maybe like a lab tech, then it's different skills that you would be looking for, whether it's maybe personality, but also some more like scientific skills too. So it's important to also know how supervisors would like to view PhD students or, other staff that they're recruiting too. Great suggestion. So this we can add it to next time's session. And I think also Yahya mentioned the imposter syndrome or the imposter phenomenon as well, which is, I think, happens at all career stages. You can never get really rid of it. So that's also something that we can keep for next time to discuss. But overall, I think we've covered many topics today. I think the conversation started with PhD supervision, but it's also hard to talk about that without talking about other factors as well that are influencing the supervision, so that was really good. I think we had thought of maybe discussing next time conflicts, how to handle difficult conversations and so on. But some of the topics that came up during the discussion today definitely would be really useful to not forget to discuss them too and integrate them somehow in next time's session. So there were many more slides, of course, but this is, like I said, not the important part of today's session. I think it's important to just talk, basically. So thank you so much for being very interactive and for joining us, and then for also sharing your thoughts. And I think also Luis has an interesting comment in the chat if you would like to check it. But I think we can conclude maybe today's session and thank everyone who contributed and everyone who gave their opinions and advice. And then we will give you some more information about next time's session. I'll try to find here the teaser slide for it. Let's see. So this is the teaser slide for next time's journal club chats, which we would be more than happy to integrate some of the topics that we touched upon today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Mel, for organizing this, and Christina and Fernando. Sorry for being
so
silent.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Past couple of days, my vacation already started, but it was just a pleasure.
Mine too, Miron, but this is important. So
yeah. Good. I think we had a really good response, and I hope that in the future we will have even more response. So thank you so much for organizing this, and putting your efforts to do this. I wish everybody a nice summer, nice weather, not too much heat, not too much rain, and give it a rest, and then see you in September, October when we get back to
we'll see all in September for the next paper session, and then I think October or November for the next chat session, the informal one.
I hope you enjoyed
Thank you
it,
for
and
wine.
thank you for your feedback. We actually recorded the session, so we can also
I'm stopping this now.